For those of you who are new to Mural, I wanted to just take a few moments and walk you through your Mural dashboard and everything that you have available to you with a license or a free Mural license. So when you log in, this is generally the view you'll have. You may not have as many boards pop up as I do, but in time you will. So it will always take you to this All Murals page here. But your private room is generally where the majority of your mural boards will go. So all of these boards here, these are all boards that I have created and have kept in my private room. Now, I can invite individuals into these boards, but they don't have access to my entire private room. So what that means is you can create a ton of different private rooms and have different folks invited to them. This is really nice for project work or capture work. You can think of these as project folders, and then you have your mural board as your files. So for instance, I just completed a training program and we had our third cohort. So I created a private room so I could host all of the mural boards for the project in one place. And then I invited Aisha, who's my co-facilitator, my co-trainer, to this room. When you invite somebody to a private room, they then have access to every single board. You don't need to invite them to each of the boards. They automatically have access. So this can be really nice if you're working on a project with a few other colleagues and you want to store all your boards in there and that everyone has access to them. You also, when you get invited to other people's boards, so let's say Chris invited me to these two boards, they live in his private room. This is what it looks like to me because I only have access to these two boards in his private room. But to him, his private room is going to look very similar to what mine looks like here. Next, I want to talk about open rooms. So open rooms are something that anybody in a workspace can create and anyone in the workspace can have access to them. So we'll talk about workspaces in a little bit, but each workspace is created by each operating group. So in these open rooms, let's click on the client delivery folder. This is where a lot of different colleagues have shared their boards and put it in an open room so all of us can see the work that's been done, or maybe there's a really interesting mural design and we want to go ahead and copy it. You've learned about the duplicate button earlier. For instance, let's say I really, really like this board that my colleague Jenny had made, and I want to make my own version of it. Again, I can go here and duplicate, and now this is where you'll want to make sure you're bringing it to the right place. So if I duplicate it in the client delivery, it's going to just come back to this open room, but really I want it to come into my room so I can start to map. Next, I want to go through these different options up here. So again, all murals, this is going to show the murals that are available to you in your workspace beyond just your own murals. Recently opened, that speaks for itself. You can favorite your murals. This is my team's stand-up board. So this is where we share the different tasks and projects we're working on. And so I'm constantly in this one, and so I have it favorite. Now, your templates. This is a really wonderful place to explore, and I definitely recommend spending some time here. So you're going to have two options for templates. You're going to have the mural templates, which are the same for anybody, no matter what workspace you're in. And then you'll have your ICF templates. Now, depending on what your workspace is, it's going to say maybe ICF public sector templates or ICF next templates. And they're going to be different because it just depends on what folks in your workspace have added to the templates section. However, you can always rely on the innovation function to constantly be updating all of the workspaces with the templates that we're creating. First, I want to start with some of the mural templates because they're really great and I really recommend checking them out. So you have everything from a problem statement workshop. There's some instructions over here and it takes you through each of the exercises. So this would be an entire workshop template. Sometimes they're more single exercises. So a focus finder exercise. And so the nice things about templates is when you create it, again, you'll have to choose where you want it to go. So this is letting me bring it into my room, as well as all of the private rooms and open rooms that I have available to me. I tend to put them in my own room, at least to start. So I'll create it from template, and then it's going to take me there immediately. So now this lives in my room. Again, you can see who the owner is, it's me, so you don't have to worry about messing with someone else's template. Whenever you do this, you want to just make sure you title it, because it will come over untitled, and maybe you want to call it the same thing as what the template is, or maybe you want to make it specific to your workshop. But then once I'm in here, I can change everything. So let's say I wanted to change this question. You may have to unlock it, of course. Where would you like to go? So maybe I'd like to change this to, what's our goal? So again, you can change everything about it. They have a logo here. We don't want that. We want to upload the ICF logo, change some of this language up here. So whenever you are working out of a template that's not an ICF one, and even when you're working out of an ICF one, make sure you go through everything and make sure that all the right language is there, and just know you have free customization of all your templates. So let's go back to some of the ICF templates that I want to just point out to everybody that I think are really helpful. So the blank meeting template was mentioned a little bit earlier, but this is a great place to start because it provides all the structure and some prompts, but you can really do whatever you'd like. Again, we really recommend having this kind of set the stage panel where you start with onboarding your new participants, going through the logistics and tips, any group commitments or expectations that you want to set. Of course, it's always great to have some type of agenda, and whether it's just a one meeting agenda or this is just today's session, you have many sessions ahead of you, it's always great to kind of let your participants know where you're going. In addition to that, it's really great to just provide some context and some level set, just some information that maybe your participants want to go back to in the middle of the workshop. And then the intro exercise, which we've already hit on. So again, this is a really great template to start from because it lets you, again, have free customization over what you'll actually do in your workshop or meeting, but at least gives you some structure to work within. At least for me, it's really intimidating to just walk into a completely blank mural board. So starting with something like this, and maybe I delete almost all of it, but keep some of the structure, really helps me personally. Another template I want to point out is this activity thumbnail. So this is a little bit different of a template than the other ones that we have, because this is a board with a series of individual exercises. So you're not going to use these exercises in a row like you would in a typical workshop. It's more about finding the exercise that you're actually really interested in using, and then taking the single exercise and putting it into your mural board. So think of the activity thumbnail again as just a bunch of single exercises. Maybe you can string some of them together, but they are not in a specific order to string together. But this is a great place to start. If you need a little bit of inspiration or you're not sure what type of exercise to do, we always will have an explanation of what the exercise is, when it's typically good to use it, some notes and tips for the facilitator, and then the instructions themselves and the structure. So there's some good stuff here. Even if the prompts or how we use the exercise isn't perfect for you, but you just like the format of it, great. Take whatever will serve the exercise or the workshop that you're creating. The other template I'll point out is just this practice board. So this practice board is wonderful for so many different things, but this is what I will send to workshop participants ahead of our meeting. So if I have a workshop next week or in a few days, I will send this as a recommendation to any new mural users to spend some time exploring. It's all guided. It walks you through everything that you would need to do, and honestly more. So sometimes if I don't need my participants to be able to do all of these different features and functions, I will just delete what I don't want them to practice. I think it's best to really show your participants what you're going to do in the workshop, and maybe one or two other features just to, kind of get them excited about Mural, but don't overwhelm them. And similarly for a demo. So we'll also do this as a group instead of sending it as kind of pre-work. we'll take a 30-minute meeting and just walk everybody through this kind of fun mural board just to get them some practice, do it all together, and just build that confidence. So this is another really great template. I want to talk about workspaces really quickly because this can be a little confusing. At ICF, we have a workspace for every single operating group. And by default, you are invited to the workspace that your operating group is. However, you can be a part of all of the workspaces or as many workspaces as you'd like. But the thing to know is that it is almost like a new account. So all of my murals that I have here, which is a lot, they're not going to be in my other workspaces. So let's say I go into my EI workspace and I go to my room. I don't have nearly the same amount of murals as I do in my Spark Labs workspace. And you can't search across workspaces either. So you really want to think about them as almost individual accounts. The reason you might want to be part of more than one workspace is if you're working across operating groups quite often. Typically, our Next Gov folks who do a lot of work in public sector as well as ICF Next want to be able to have access to both workspaces. My suggestion is just choose one as your main workspace and keep the majority of your murals there, because when you are going to search for it, you'll always go to that one first instead of not knowing and constantly going between the two of them. The other thing for everyone to know is that if you are, let's say, an EEI, and let's say I want to invite a colleague from public sector to this board I've created or I'm mid-creation, I can't do that because they're not part of my EEI workspace. So I'll have to invite them as a visitor. If that's okay, if you just need them to be a very active collaborator, there's no harm in that. It's perfectly fine to just send them a visitor link. If you want them to be able to facilitate though, and have some of the facilitator superpowers, that person will need to request access to the EEI workspace so that they can get those full permissions. The other thing about using a visitor license versus a full license is just this dashboard. It's so great to be able to organize all of your murals in one place. If you don't have a mural license and you're using the visitor license quite often, it just can become a little burdensome to keep track of all those different links, where having a mural license, it keeps track of everything that I'm invited to by the different rooms that I was invited to, and it keeps all of my murals in one place. So if you do want to have access to the other workspaces, you can just request to join them, or you can email myself and I can give you access to them. But you do have to have a mural license. Now, you only need one mural license to have access to all the workspaces or any of the workspaces. So it's not technically additional licenses, but it just kind of acts that way because the workspaces don't connect or talk to each other. Organize the content. Here's a bunch of articles to help you get started. But this imagination lab is where the real meat kind of lives. So going to the imagination lab, you'll hit get started, and there is a lot of content in here. So again, this takes you to a bunch of different places, and you have some resources, glossary, the webinars. There's some amazing webinars. I highly recommend checking them out, and they record them. But over here in the Learn Mural, this is where you will have access to a plethora of different videos. So they are organized by the different levels, and you'll see there is an entire video on colors or an entire video on sticky notes or shapes. So what we did in our training is kind of bring these different features together in one video and kept it pretty high level. These videos will allow you to go deeper into each of the different features and functions we talked about. So if you have a question or you weren't quite sure how we did that in the videos you previously watched, I would check out the Learn platform and check out some of these videos because there's some really, really great stuff in here.